seconds.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah. What is going on, everybody? Hello and welcome back to On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepardson, and today is Tuesday, June the 4th, 2024, years after zero. I guess if we're getting technical about it, it is already about 1 a.m. So I guess it's technically Wednesday, June the 5th, 2024, years after zero. We're burning the midnight oil. But we can't go another week. We can't let you guys down. We got to keep these things rolling for OTP Tuesdays and On the Pipe Podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. We got a ton of racing to talk about. We got some stuff to talk about from last weekend. There was a U.S. Sprint Enduro. There was also a U.S. Hard Enduro, 2 rounds actually, up in Pennsylvania. There was an AMA. Nope, there wasn't. There was a NGPC last weekend. We're going to talk about some of that stuff, and then we're going to roll straight into this past weekend that we just got through, and that was round number 8 of the GNCC series, the Dixon GNCC that took place up on the line between West Virginia and Pennsylvania. Some of the tightest racing action I have seen. I think it was something like first through 7th or 8th place was 1 minute and 7 seconds apart between all of them. Sitting at the finish line, watched all of them come through in a train, wheel to wheel to wheel to finish. It was tight racing all day long. Liam Draper in the XC2 class led the overall there for the first half of the race. Thad Duvall in that number 2 spot for that first half of the race. Both of those riders would end up running into some issues and paving the way for Grant Davis to do what Grant Davis has been doing. We're going to get into the GNCC here in just a couple moments. We're going to, like I said, recap some of the stuff from last weekend and get to rolling. If you have not yet checked out the raw video from this past weekend's GNCC, go to the OTP YouTube channel and check it out. Go to youtube.com or open up the YouTube app, search for On the Pipe Podcast. You'll see it in there. We bring those to you every single race weekend. This weekend's video, well, I thought it was a good one. How tight the racing was, how many spots that we got to. There was a couple spots where I was missing the leaders again because following the teams around, there was just so many locations that you could get the riders. And so we were bouncing around from place to place to place. So there was actually several times in the video where I didn't even have time to get my camera out of the bag, but it was such intense racing action that I would say at least 4 or 5 times during the day on Sunday, I made it to a spot where the leaders were, but pulled up on my beta as they were coming by and just couldn't do anything but sit and watch. Thought about trying to sneak in and get the rest of the pack going through, but it was one of those weekends. It's undescribable. Being there, having a front row seat to the best racing action in the world, and to see these guys in their prime and to see these battles going back and forth. I'm just a full-blown fan of this sport. So like I said, there's a lot of times where I pull up and see them coming by, and I can't do anything but just sit and watch just as a fan. So a lot of places that we were able to catch them this past weekend. So I hope you guys enjoy the video and check it out. There is an Easter egg in this video at the end where somebody says something they should not have been saying on camera. Didn't know that was the case, to be honest with you. When I was editing the video, I listened to it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again on my computer. Could not make out what was being said. I was like, well, must not be too bad. Posted it. Next morning, woke up, checked my phone just to make sure that the video posted, and on my phone could hear clear as day what was being said. And I was like, oh, that is not a good look. So I won't let anybody know that was not intentional to have that in the video. But you're surrounded by people at the finish line with cameras and people and microphones all around you. So I don't know. It seems like all is fair, but I do feel bad. If I would have caught it, I probably wouldn't have put it out there, but it is out there. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's get into the racing action, the racing action that we have going on. Before we do that, I want to let you guys know that I have a very firm stance on what manufacturers' bikes I choose to ride. And you all know that it is Beta Motorcycles. And it's because they're family-owned and operated, and they've been that way since 1905. They are the official manufacturer of On the Pipe podcast. They manufacture the finest enduro trials and dual sport motorcycles that are known for their premium quality and rideability. They are the best-looking bikes on the market, and they back it up with their superior performance. I love riding it. I've been on the Beta 390 for the past year, and I just got a Snapchat yesterday that the new Beta machine, easy for me to say, the new Beta machine for 2024 is on grounds. Should be picking that thing up ASAP. Got a 200 race edition, back to the 2-stroke. So far it's been 2-stroke, 4-stroke, 2-stroke. So can't wait to get on that thing and give it a rip. Loved all my betas that I've had so far. Go to betausa.com to find more information on their available models and find a dealer near you to get yours today. I've also been, seeing more and more betas at the GNCCs. It's like everywhere I look. And it's one of those things where, like, as soon as you buy a particular model of car, all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere. It's one of those things where, like, if you're thinking for it and looking for it, you're going to obviously see more of them. But we've been with Beta like 4 years, 3.5 years now, something like that. And so I've always been looking at, like, every time I see them, I pull them out, like, oh, there's Beta. But it seems like here recently there's been more and more. I've just been seeing a lot more betas. And at the Mid-East races, there's several betas, and pretty much every single one of the betas at the Mid-East races get the dang hole shot because of that beta power. But, yeah, I see more and more popping up at the locals as well. So, really cool what Beta is doing. Once you ride the bikes, you completely understand what the rideability thing means. So, check them out. betausa.com. This episode is also brought to you in part by Zach Tussle at Raymond James Financial. Zach is a racer and a financial advisor that helps his clients win when it comes to retirement and financial planning. If you or someone you know wants to save and invest for their future or is already retired, needs advice for income during retirement, Zach Tussle is always my first recommendation. Been doing a lot of work alongside Zach Tussle here recently, trying to get some more exposure, build some business up for him. You can find them at financialadvisorsdenvernc.com. Fill out that little form on there with your information and let him know you listen to OTP. You'll get a free consultation. He can let you know exactly what it is that he does and exactly how that can help and benefit you, especially if you're like on the verge of retiring. All of that money is held in a 401k. They just kind of let it sit there. They do some small investments with it. But then once you actually retire, you can actually move that money over to a financial advisor like Zach Tussle that can help make the most of your money and your income during retirement. He can help you find out how much money you can pull out, how much money you need to live on, when you can retire, and all of that stuff and more. Plus, he's a racer. He gets it. He's at the races each weekend. He understands us as a racing community. So, yeah. Keep it all in the family, man. Hit up Zach Tussle. We got some more sponsors. We're going to get to them later in the show. Right now, we're going to get started and get rolling into here. The ISDE teams were announced this past week. The AMA put out a press release letting you and me and everyone else know who the ISDE teams are for this year. Last year, it seemed like a little West Coast-centric, but last year we came off one of the most impressive American runs at the ISDE that we have seen in recent history. And this year, it seems pretty East Coast focused, well, as far as the trophy teams are concerned. And they look to continue and build upon that success that we saw last year. This year, they're going to be going over to Spain. I was going to say it in Spanish, but I wasn't sure. Confused myself halfway through it. But, yeah, excited to see the team go out there and compete. This year, it will be Dante Oliveira, who has been competing and solidifying himself as one of the best in the world each year at the ISDE. So Dante Oliveira will be returning back to the trophy team, as will Johnny Gerard, the Mad Dog himself, the multi-time U.S. Sprint Enduro champion. The current GNCC points leader, the New England Ripper. He is a madman and an asset to that trophy team. That sprint speed is undeniable. Craig DeLong, the reigning GNCC champion. This one, it did kind of surprise me a little bit, but Craig has been to the ISDE before. He doesn't typically race a lot of the sprint enduros, but no doubt has that raw speed and will compete in that trophy on that trophy team over in Spain this year. So excited to see Craig out there on the trophy team and put the hammer down out there. And then Josh Toth, who, when the AMA is listening to this, they list what brand of bike that they're on. And Josh Toth says gas, but Josh Toth is an absolute madman. This past weekend, he won a local race overall on a Yamaha. So now, this year, he's won races on a gas. He's won races in overall GNCC, first in history from the second row, on a Honda. He's now won a race on a Yamaha. And I want to say he raced another brand of bike this year, too. I think he's raced 4 brands of bike. But Josh Toth just kind of doing his own thing, being the madman that he is, one of the most skilled riders that there are out there. One of my personal favorite, most fun riders to watch, just his style and the way he rides. He was selected on the U.S. World Trophy team as well. So a solid team of Dante Oliveira, Johnny Gerard, Craig DeLong, and Josh Toth looking to defend gold over there at this year's ISDE. When you look down at the junior trophy team, it is going to be, I'm pretty sure, the same 3 riders. They came up just short in the number 2 spot last year, but they look to go out there and compete and take home the number 1 spot this coming year. It will be Dante's younger brother, Mateo Oliveira, Nick Davis's younger brother, Grant Davis, who is making a name for himself, and then Jason Tino will be joining the junior trophy team out there this year in Spain this coming October. Looking down at the women's trophy class, I believe it is the back-to-back trio, the same team from last year. Brandy Richards, who was an absolute world beater, going perfect at ISDs in the past, winning every single test and winning multiple women's overall trophy team riders. She will lead the efforts over there for the women's trophy team. Corey Steed, who was always right on the rear wheel of Brandy Richards and had a great showing last year at ISDE as well. And then Rachel Goodish will be going over there. She's been competing in the World Enduro GP races this year. So she, and also some hard enduro stuff, all sorts of stuff. Rachel Goodish, we've talked about her on the podcast many times about all the different things that she does and has success at. So that is the returning women's trophy team. We also got a lot of club riders. I guess we can go through them real quick. We got Team GTB and Jaden Donners is going to be on that team. Our beta boy, the XC3 points leader, Jack Walker, will be on that team as well. And Leighton Smale will be rounding that one out. Team Huff Legacy Racing, Tyler Vord, Trevor Maley, Tanner Whipple. All these people have qualified through qualifying events, letter of intent races to get on these club teams. Team XC Gear, who has always had success at the ISDs in the past. Cooper Jones, Cole Whitmer, and Hunter Smith will be heading up that effort. Team Elizabeth Scott Community, Alex Dorsey, Lane Lorenzo, and Ryder Tomaselli will be heading that one up. Team US Sprint Enduro, they're going to be sending a team over. Josh Toth's younger brother, Zach Toth, will be out there. Anson Maloney and Anthony Ferrante. Team Missouri Mud Rider sees Huck Jenkins, Eric Forsberg, Eric Stevensons, and Team Eric Cleveland Memorial. It's a women's club team. Ava Silvestri will be out there, Olivia Pugh, and Jocelyn Barnes. So a stacked women's club team that we're going to see over there competing as well. So that'll be fun to watch and keep tabs on. So now let's go to last weekend. We'll start things off first with the AMA National Grand Prix Championship. That is the NGPC. It used to be the AMA Big Six. For those that aren't familiar, taking the win last weekend. in Marysville is where they were racing at. It was Dante Oliveira, the reigning champion, that would go out there and take that win. Dante Oliveira has been on a tear here lately. We got to see him this past weekend. Join us once again for some GNCC racing. It was a pleasure to see him out there as well competing. The teaser video for the YouTube video, those two passes that he made, two passes on the outside. He made more than that, but there was two in that little Instagram video. Seemed to get the lion's share of the comments and the recognition out there. So Dante Oliveira, no doubt, a grass track ripper, a cross test ripper, got the raw sprint speed. He goes out there, takes the win this past weekend. Dare DiMartillo giving him a run for his money on that factory beta machine, heading it up out there on the left coast for Dare DiMartillo with a second place finish. And then Cole Martinez would round out the overall podium with a third place finish. Looking down at the Pro 2 class, Mason Simmons from Australia, saw him race in the GNCC the past couple years. This year, gets a deal with that RPM KTM team to go out west and go racing, and he has made the most of it. Every time you look at these races, it's Mason Simmons, for the most part, coming out on top. He leads the points in that Pro 2 class so far this year after 5 rounds of racing. So shout out to Mason Simmons getting it done out there. Parker Ross, second place in the Pro 2 class, and Collier Martinez would round out the Pro 2 podium. Looking down at the Pro women, it was Michaela Nielsen that took the Pro women's class win. Ava Silvestri with a second place finish on the day. And let me just double check here. Those were the only 2 pro riders. So I was looking at the overall, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Just 2 pro riders out there. So that is the way that the NGPC shook up last week. There was I think it was 3 races in a row for the U.S. Hard Enduro Series. A Tough Like Roar was the main race of the weekend, and then the Locked and Loaded Hare Scramble after that. But I think there was some qualifying or prologue type rounds before that. But at the Tough Like Roar race, highly anticipated race, there was only one rider in the entire field that finished that race, and it was your overall winner, Mr. Cody Webb, getting it done on that Sherco machine. So I'm pretty sure everyone probably saw that video where he pulls off the track, immediately goes, lays down on the side. It looked like it took everything out of him. No doubt that had to have been a tough racetrack, as Cody Webb, the only person to finish all 12 checks and make it to the finish line in this year's Tough Like Roar race. Tristan Hart would end the day with a second place finish. He would make it through 10 of the checks out there at Tough Like Roar. And then Will Reardon, brother of Gus Reardon, who's out here racing with us as well, the first factory gas hard enduro rider. Will Reardon finds himself on the final step of the overall podium with a third place finish. And spoiler alert, this is going to be the same podium riders, just in a little bit different order for the next day as well. So Cody Webb takes the win at Tough Like Roar, the only rider to finish. Tristan Hart in the number 2 spot, Will Reardon in third. The very next day was the Locked and Loaded Hare Scramble. That was also part of the U.S. Hard Enduro Series and also up in Pennsylvania. This time, our top 2 riders would swap back and forth. Tristan Hart would go on to take the overall win over Cody Webb. Cody Webb, all them guys had to have been spent. The way that track looked and how tough it looked, those guys had to have been spent, especially pulling double duty that weekend as well. So Tristan Hart takes the win. Cody Webb would be in the number 2 spot, and Will Reardon would once again grab that final podium position at the Locked and Loaded Hare Scramble up there. Speaking of some of those guys, some of those names were familiar in this past weekend's race at the Iron Giant, the Erzberg Rodeo, going on over in Austria. A race that I think everyone looks forward to every year. It's just one of those races that like stands the test of time. That is like, when you think of hard enduro, you think of Erzberg, most people. So Mandy Lettenbichler would go out and win it for a third time. He did it in pretty dominating fashion. I want to go back and watch the entire race. I haven't been able to watch it yet, but like I said, it is one that always interests me, so I will go back and watch that one. But Manny Lettenbichler would take the win. Tristan Hart, coming off of back-to-back double duties the weekend prior, like we just talked about in Pennsylvania, would go on to take the number 2 spot at the Erzberg Rodeo, right behind Manny Lettenbichler, and then Mario Roman would round out your overall podium. But in the number 4 spot, it was a pretty cool sight to see. Just when you think you can count the old man out, he goes out and does it again. 49-year-old Graham Jarvis does it Jarvis style, goes out, gets 4th place, just barely off of the podium as he makes his way across the finish line in the Erzberg Rodeo. Wade Young would be in the number 5 spot, and Johnny Walker in the number 6 spot. Hopefully we can see Johnny Walker and a lot of these riders over here for the TKO National Championship. It is part of the World Enduro Super Series this year. Every other year they alternate, so last year was not a West round, the year before that was, which means this year it will be a West event. And if you have not went to check out that race, I would highly recommend you do so. It is an awesome race to go to, especially when it's on the World Enduro Super Series stage, because you see so many people. It's like being at a Des Nations or being at an ISDE. There's so much culture and so many international people there, and it's a really cool sight to see walking around the woods, seeing people ride up rocks that they have no business being able to take a dirt bike up and doing it lap after lap, race after race. So hopefully we'll see all of those riders over there competing in that one as well. U.S. Sprint Enduro last weekend, Johnny Gerard would take the overall win and the Pro 1 win. Liam Draper in the number 2 spot. Cody Barnes, your 3rd place rider overall on the day out there. Gus Reardon would battle back and forth. Dominic Morris putting on a show out there, riding a really good race of his own. But Angus Reardon would take the Pro 2 win. Dominic Morris would take number 2 spot in the Pro 2 class. And Jason Tino would round out the overall podium at the U.S. Sprint Enduro. Cooper Jones would take the Pro-Am class win. Gavin Simon in the number 2 spot. And Swole Cole Whitmer would round out the Pro-Am podium at the High Voltage U.S. Sprint Enduro, former GNCC property up there. Take a look down at the Pro Women's class. A couple ladies we just talked about. Brandy Richards would take the win there. Corey Steed, though, in the number 2 spot, just 2 seconds off of the pace. And like we said, Brandy Richards has dominated the ISDE, and now Corey Steed staying right with her. That's going to make for a very strong women's trophy team as we head over to Spain this October to go racing for the ISDE. And I believe it was, let me just double check here and sort down to the women's pro. I look in the overall, but just didn't want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So it is Olivia Judy that would be credited with 3rd place in the women's pro class, although it looks like she only raced 3 tests. Oh, matter of fact, hold on a second. Might have told you something wrong here. I was looking at day 2. So looking at the combined scores, it's still the same. Johnny Gerard takes the win. Liam Draper in 2nd. Cody Barnes in the number 3 spot. Gus Reardon would win Pro 2. Dominic Morris would be 2nd place. And Jason Tino would be in the 3rd place spot. See that? I was right. Didn't even have to say anything. You would have never even known that I made the mistake. Brandy Richards takes the win. Corey Steed in the number 2 spot. So that is how it did shake up now that we sort through it. So that gets us caught up to where we were this past weekend at the GNCC Series round number 8 that was happening up in, I guess it's Dillner, Pennsylvania is what it gets credited with. But yeah, so a couple things real quick. Onyx Maps Onyx Maps is a tool that I've grown accustomed to using. It is a very powerful mapping tool. It allows you to see the track maps. You can pull up the track map, so when you're going around, you can see exactly where the track is. You can slide around and play with the elevation, so you can actually see the elevation in a 3D mapping model to see it. One of the biggest, most powerful things of Onyx Maps is you can use it to find places to ride. So public trail systems and trail systems that are marked on the map, you can pull it up and look around you to find a new place to go riding. And that is very beneficial because, like when we've had Stu Baylor on the show to talk in the past, one of the things that he likes to do is go ride in a similar condition to where the race is that weekend. So like get down there early in the week, ride the week prior or even Friday or Saturday on race weekend in similar environments to where the GNCC is taking place. You can do this with any race that you're going to. If you have the Onyx Maps app, you can pull it up, look at that location, and find public trails directly on that map where you can actually go out and ride as well. You can also do it if you got trail systems near your house or there's OHV trail systems that you want to go to. Onyx Map is a very powerful tool that allows you to locate brand new trails, brand new tracks to go ride. And then also on the private side, you can map out your own trails with it, whether it is the race that you're racing that weekend as you're pedaling your bike through it. You can actually map out that trail and go back and see everything, see the miles markers. You can mark different hazards on there. So if there's a hill climb you're worried about, you want your dad standing there, you can mark it on that Onyx map, share that file with him. He can then go out there and find it for you. Creek crossings, mile markers, banner, ribbon, whatever you want to do. You can mark pretty much anything on that map and then, like I said, locate new areas to ride. So Onyx Map is a very powerful tool. We started working with them earlier this year, so I've been using it more and more, and honestly, I couldn't imagine being at the races and filming and doing all this stuff without having Onyx Maps. The great thing is that I think all the memberships are reduced right now, but you can save another 20% off of their price if you use promo code OTP. Simple as that. Promo code OTP. That'll get you into Onyx Maps, save you 20% off of your subscription, and trust me, you're at racetracks every single weekend. It is well worth the investment to get on there and do that. Outside of that, you can check property lines, boundary lines, and find out landowners for anything. So if you got a piece of property down the road from your house, you can actually use it, find who the owner is, give them a call. Hey, would you mind if I rode my dirt bike here? Hey, would you mind if I hunted this property? You know what I mean? You can find all of that landowner information on there as well. So super powerful tool. There's all sorts of different things that it can do. They set up free seminars to figure out how to use it and use it effectively as well. So it is certainly worth checking out, and it's also worth using promo code OTP to save you 20% off of your subscription. Like I said, I'm hooked. I can't go back. Dimmer's Precision Grading, DPG. They are a full-service grading company up here in the greater Charlotte region of the Carolinas. Brandon Dimmer is a A-class racer. He races all the local races as well, and comes out and does some GNCCs as well, too. But he has started DPG. I think they are 6 or 7 years into operation and growing like a weed. They have solidified themselves as one of the premier grading services around this area. So no job, big or small, residential, commercial, if you need stuff done at your house or you need a complete site leveled to go out there and build an Amazon warehouse, whatever you may need for your grading work, DPG, it was always my first recommendation. They will be able to help you get it done, and they actually have a crew of all sorts of riders. So it seems like most of the people there are like former pro riders or current racers and riders. So it's pretty cool to go out there to their job sites and see some familiar faces from the past out there working and making a living. So yeah, if you need any grading work done, same thing, keeping it all in the Moto family. It's rider-owned, and a lot of riders are out there operating. So Dimmer's Precision Grading, you can find them on social medias and also dimmersprecisiongrading.com, at Dimmer's Precision Grading on Instagram or whatever. Shoot them a message, check out their work, all of that good stuff. As we lead into our GNCC results from the weekend. First, we'll go through our overall results, let you know how things shook up. Down to the wire, it came for the overall win. Johnny Gerard would barely edge out Stuart Baylor Jr. That was a race that was absolutely insane. And you can actually see it in the YouTube video. But at the 8-mile marker, Stu comes out of the woods. He's out in the lead, gets a pit board from his dad that says all clear. Jordan Ashburn at that point was in the number 2 spot. And then Johnny Gerard, who was leading the points, was in that number 3 spot. In that piece of track that we saw between the 4.5 and the 8, Johnny was actually able to get around Jordan Ashburn. So as soon as Stu Baylor came through the 8-mile marker, all of a sudden the next rider by is the 969 of Johnny Gerard coming out of the woods. And then Jordan Ashburn in the number 3 spot, and everybody else rolling in a train right behind that. Cut over, hit him at the 11-mile marker as they come through the hay bales. Johnny Gerard is the first rider that we see pop out of the woods with Stu Baylor all over his rear tire, and then go straight from there over to the finish line, which is around the 11-mile marker. Everyone is standing at the finish line waiting and looking at the woods, and as soon as they come out of the woods, it is the 969 still out in front. Stu Baylor all over his rear wheel, tries to run it up on the side of him as they head around 2 more turns left to go. A straightaway coming into the finish line. Johnny goes a little bit wide in the main rut. Stu tries to cut it up underneath and realizes that he just ran out of time. It was a battle that came down to the wire. Stu Baylor visibly upset, visibly frustrated at the finish line. Coming into this past weekend, the way that the math worked out, if Stu Baylor won out the rest of the series and Johnny Gerard got second the rest of the series, Stu Baylor would have barely edged him out for the championship. If you take the remaining rounds that we have left and you average that out, if Stu Baylor wins every single round and Johnny Gerard gets second every single round, Johnny Gerard will still win this championship. We were looking at another potential 9-point gain if Stu Baylor was able to win and Jordan Ashburn stayed in between Johnny and Stu. Well, turns out Johnny, in the last few miles of trail, decided to get a 2-for-1, get past both of them, and take another win on the season this past weekend. So it was an amplified battle. There's a lot on the line. The points are on the line. The championship is on the line. And now, I mean, anything goes. Stu Baylor's going to have to go out there and win races, and Johnny Gerard is going to have at least one not-so-good race. But so far, we haven't seen Johnny be not so good at any point this year. He's winning the Sprint Enduros. He's winning the GNCCs. Even when he was sick and had the flu, he's still on the podium, salvaging points at the GNCCs. So it is crazy to watch this battle coming down to the wire. But Stu Baylor had him covered. Stu Baylor was running out in front. Stu Baylor looked like he was on rails this past weekend. And then just right there at the finish, the last couple miles of trails, anything can happen. Listening to Johnny talking at the finish line, it sounds like Stu, he said tuck the front end. I don't know if it was a mishap. I don't know if it was a tip over. I don't know if it was just a kind of put a foot down and lose your momentum and get going again. But that is where Johnny evidently got past Stu. And then hearing Stu at the finish line, I think he even alluded to it for the Racer TV interview, but just talking about how last he knew Jordan Ashburn was behind him, and then all of a sudden it was Johnny Gerard behind him. And one thing that I never really thought about until heard him talking more about it is that is 2 completely different ways to manage a race. That is race management on different scales between having Jordan Ashburn behind you and having Johnny Gerard behind you. And we all know that Jordan Ashburn is a competitor. He's a former champion. He is hard to pass. He is a guy that is going to hold on to everything that he has. But Johnny Gerard, multi-time Sprint Enduro champion, he has that sprint speed. And also talking with him, he said he could start to see bits and pieces of Stu and his chest protector through the woods, and he said he saw red. And that's when he dropped the hammer down. Johnny Gerard is a guy that can ride above the line and still keep it in control. Just like Stu Baylor. Stu Baylor is a guy that can ride above the line and maintain that pace. But Stu Baylor has been racing in this XC1 Pro class since he was 17 years old. He is one of the veterans of the XC1 class. And so that race management kicks in, and it's like, all right, we're leading. These points matter. Did not have the best showing at the round prior to that in West Virginia. In Ohio. At Powerline Park. And so he sees all of that coming in, trying to manage the rest of the race to get to the finish line. Then all of a sudden, Johnny Gerard comes out of nowhere. And that is how tight this battle is, especially how it has been between Johnny and Stu this year. Jordan Ashburn getting himself up in those podium spots as well, sitting in third place in points. So it has been tight racing this entire time. So, yeah, just another weekend of that. It is going to be a battle that comes down to the wire between these guys. But right now, Johnny has quite the lead as they head back into the final part of the season. I have the XC1 points pulled up, but everything goes off of the overall points for that XC1 class. Johnny Gerard now with 3 overall wins on the season. That is the max amount of wins that it has taken the last 3 seasons to win this GNCC championship. We've talked about it before. 3 wins, 2 wins, 3 wins are the win rates of the last 3 champions in the GNCC series. Johnny Gerard, 3 overall wins. Stu Baylor, 2 overall wins as they head back out. Snowshoe in 2 weeks, and then summer break, and then the rest of the season will come down right after that. Looking at the third place spot overall, it was Grant Davis once again getting on the overall podium. Grant Davis has been on fire here lately. He goes out, wins the XC2 class, and lands on the overall box with a third place finish. As we mentioned, the XC2 led the overall for the entire first half of the race. Liam Draper was out in front, Thad Duvall in that number 2 spot, both pushing the pace and pushing each other and both riding very well and leading the overall. I think at one point after lap 1 or 2, it was when Stu had gotten into the lead. Stu was in the XC1 lead and the physical lead, but I think he was 5th or 6th overall. And that is how crazy fast XC2 was riding, trying to catch up and break into that pack of riders. So Liam Draper would end up having a crash that would force him out of the race. Thad Duvall would end up having a freak incident with his tire coming off of the bead. Moose looked good, tire looked good. Don't know how it happened, why it happened, but it seems like that was the issue for Thad Duvall, a rear tire coming off of the bead and going back in and having to change that wheel, which is an absolute bummer the way that Thad was riding. Want to see him running up front, want to see him click off one of those wins. And, coming off a couple years of injuries, and now Thad Duvall has been taking advantage of this opportunity that he has in that XC2 class, and hopefully we can see him capitalize on it more here coming up. He's won the overall at Snowshoe before. It's anyone's game at Snowshoe. Everyone starts on different rows. The time adjustments are crazy. Someone doesn't even have to be able to see you to be able to beat you. There's no telling what can happen up on this mountain of Snowshoe. So third place in the XC1 class was Jordan Ashburn, landing on the XC1 podium once again for the season with a third place finish. And then looking down at XC2, Grant Davis would take the win. Gus Reardon would be second place in the XC2 class, coming in on the rear tire of Grant Davis. That is another battle that came down to the wire. Angus did everything he could to try to take that win at the finish line, but Grant Davis would hold on and get it done. And then rounding out the final podium spot in the XC2 class, it was Cody Barnes getting it done as well. So that is how it shakes up. And just so you know, the overall winner was essentially 2 hours and 51 minutes. And then we go all the way down to Nick DeFeo in 15th place with a finish time of 2:53. Oh, hold on. Messed up. Grant Baylor in the number 13 spot, 2:53.53. So essentially between 2:51 and 2:54, the top 13 were in 2 minutes of each other, which is absolutely insane, especially at the level that all these riders are riding at. Josh Strang put on a good showing as well, got as high as second place, was looking really good. Talked with him a little bit after the race, and apparently he had a bad crash as well. They kind of knocked him back a little bit, but it's one of those cases where the paper results don't really show the results of the weekend because that racing was so tight. It really came down to track position and where you were at when the checkered flag flew. But all of these riders had very good rides this past weekend, Josh Strang being one of them. Johnny Gerard out front, Stu Baylor in second, Grant Davis in third, Gus Reardon fourth, Fifth place overall was Jordan Ashburn, who rounded out the XC1 podium. Dante Oliveira was joining us again since winning a GNCC, comes back, gets sixth place overall. In the number 7 spot was Craig DeLong. Lyndon Snodgrass had an excellent ride as well, led some of the laps, was out in front there for a while, would finish the day in 8th place. Michael Kowski, who's been on a tear in that XC1 class, would end up 9th place overall. And then Evan Smith would take the top 10 position as he was able to get it done there. Looking down at the XC3 class, Dakota DeVore would go on to take the win just ahead of Jack Walker. This is a battle that's going to come down to the wire as well. Jack Walker clicked off a few wins in a row, and now Dakota DeVore has been able to manage several wins in a row. He keeps his win streak going, but Jack Walker right on the heels. So hopefully we'll see that battle continue to increase. Right now, Jack Walker still leads the way in the XC3 points, though. And then Sawyer Karatura would end the day in 3rd place in that XC3 class. Our top amateurs, it was Nick DeFeo getting it done, Jason Tino in the number 2 spot, and Will Sievenpiper rounding out the overall top amateur podium out of the 250A class as well. So those are the top 3 in 250A as well as the top 3 overall AMs. A couple things to point out. First of all, let's get to the women's results. We'll let you know how that went. Corey Steed would take her 2nd win in a row, getting it done over Brandy Richards, who continues to impress as the series goes north, showing that she's not just a desert rider. She can ride in all of it. And then TMFJ, Taylor Jones, all of a sudden made her return out of nowhere, decides to line up in that WXC class, and still lands on the WXC podium after not racing all of this year. She came out and raced a Mid-East race in the pro class a couple weeks ago. Well, she comes out, races WXC, and lands right back where she left off in the WXC podium. Shelby Turner would be 4th place, and Rachel Archer would round out your top 5 and hold on to the points lead there. But what we're going to get at, a couple things. Rui Barbosa made his XC1 debut this past weekend. And then Johnny Johnson, we haven't seen him race since Florida due to a foot injury, a toe injury to be more specific. But he has made the move up to XC1 as well, riding a Beta 390. So off the 2-stroke, onto the 4-stroke, and into the XC1 class. So 2 new contenders to the already growing XC1 class. And one interesting thing to note between that XC1 class, it is now 2 races in a row that there's been more XC1 riders than XC2 riders. That has been a heated topic on the show in the past with all sorts of guests and all sorts of stuff going on, is the fact that usually the XC2 row is huge and the XC1 row only has a handful of people. So for 2 races in a row, the XC1 line was far bigger than the XC2 line, and I think that makes the racing even more competitive. This is what we've been saying the whole time. I'm glad that we're seeing this happen. I don't know if other people are glad that it is happening. I don't know who wouldn't be. Like I said, it's just making the racing that much more competitive, especially after the bonuses are all taken away as far as paying out XC1 and XC2 separately from the payouts from the series. They now pay the top 15 riders overall. And when you look at it, there was only 2 XC2 riders in the top 15 overall. And the rest are all, 3 XC2 riders in the top 15 overall. And then Nick DeFeo was 15th in the 250A class. So what that means is even if you were 4th place in XC2 in years past, you would still get paid. This year, or this race, you wouldn't, because you only get paid for the top 15. So all of these riders that move to the XC1 class, they're getting that race knowledge, they're getting that race experience, they're pacing themselves off of the XC1 guys from the very beginning, and then they're getting in the top 15 overall. So they're making that payout, even though, I mean, like I said, if you were getting paid out top 5, top 6, whatever it was in XC2, if you were 4th place this weekend, you wouldn't have made any money. But in the XC1 class, you're pacing yourself off those guys and pushing farther and farther into the overall and getting paid more and more for those finishing positions. So it was just something that I was noticing. We actually had a big front row, and then I think only 8 riders on the XC2 row, which is typically flip-flop from what it's been in years past. So, I mean, just this year alone, look at the new riders we have to XC1. I mean, Lyndon Snodgrass, it's his first full year in that XC1 class. Dante Oliveira coming out and going racing with us. Johnny Johnson now moving up. Rui Barbosa moving up. Mike Wachowski moving up. Evan Smith moving up. We got all these riders, and it's just going to push that level higher and higher, and I'm excited to see all of these XC1 riders get together, push each other, and go faster and faster and faster each and every single week, while also we got some of those XC2 riders that are pushing their ways up in the overall every single race as well. Speaking of which, as we go to Snowshoe, that is going to be an interesting thing as well, because Snowshoe, as everyone knows, has a different start than normal. You start based off your overall finishing or overall points position in the series. So that means that Grant Davis is going to be on the front row. He's leading the XC2 points, but he's also third place overall in points. Jordan Ashburn in fourth, Craig DeLong in fifth. So that will be your front row at Snowshoe with Johnny Gerard and Stu Baylor, obviously battling for that overall championship. And then the second row, Gus Reardon, Grant Baylor, Mike Wachowski, Liam Draper, and Evan Smith. So it leads to a little adversity because the rows take off so quickly beyond each other. And we've seen this come down to the wire. The year Ricky Russell won it, Josh Toth was right there for the win as well, and so was Ricky Russell, and I think there's somebody else that was in that three-way battle as they all came to a mud hole and all three picked different lines, and Ricky's the one that made it through. So we saw one XC2 rider win this year. Now Grant Davis will be on the front row. It's simple for Grant Davis. Win from all the five guys on your front row. As you start getting back, it starts to get a little bit more weird and weird because somebody on the third row can be not even within sight of someone on the first row, but still be ahead in time adjustment. We saw that when Jordan Ashburn got his very first win. Was it last year or the year before? I think it might have been the year. Yeah, it was the year before. I wasn't at Snowshoe last year, I don't think. So Jordan Ashburn came through the finish line physically in first, but then it was a waiting game to wait for everybody else to finish to find out he actually won. So Snowshoe is an interesting to watch because you never know what is going to happen. It is a track that is very tough, and it is a track that with the time adjustment and you're racing on two separate sides of the mountains on two different loops, there's all sorts of stuff that can happen out there. So excited to see that one. That is going to kick off summer break and give us a couple months off before we come back and finish out the rest of the season after that. So that is it. I think that got us all caught up here. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to On the Pipe podcast. Hopefully you got something of value out of this episode. We're going to try to do some interviews. We need to talk to some people. We need to hear what's going on out there in the world of off-road. Be a friend. Tell a friend. If you enjoy this show, let them know about On the Pipe podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Give us a follow wherever you're listening at. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on OTP.